2023 was a doozy. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And we made decisions with the data that came along, just like you do every single year. However, we saw a market shift where we went from a little bit of that post-pandemic type of inflated pricing and market sentiment, let's go type of deal, to a little more subdued because of interest rates, because money getting so expensive, and because of a few other factors, and we'll get into that. So it was probably not the best time, 2023, for a lot of folks. However, I think 2024 is going to have opportunity. And much like I tell everybody, much like I coach my clients, you have to create the opportunity a lot of times. There's no perfect storm, right? There's no walking into a certain market and poof, my house is gone and I can buy for a decent price at the next one. It doesn't always work out that way. It did maybe for a little bit in 2020, but it doesn't always work out that way. So for 2024, the first thing I'm looking at is interest rates. So the promise has been that we're not going to see a huge amount of increases, and then I think a week ago we heard that we were going to get decreases, and now what we're hearing is we're not going to get any changes from the fund rate. So how do markets react to that? The economy in general. How do markets react to that? More specifically for real estate, how do mortgage brokers react to that when they're borrowing to lend or lending to you? And how do you, if you're a buyer or a seller, buyer, react to that, right? A lot of times, this kind of creates a ripple effect throughout the economy, and we see either people quit the market, wait another year, or uh, jump the gun and don't carefully calculate where the best investments are. So that's one of the things I'm keeping an eye on, because it can change at any time. And I also have to keep a pulse on how the entire sentiment is going to affect my clients. So, number two, credit and credit defaults. So, as far as credit usage goes, we have the highest of all time. It's not necessarily something to be proud of. And of course, I'm not talking about specifically credit cards. I'm talking about any money that's not yours that you're using for either a purchase or to invest or anything like that. Uh, we're at an all-time high on both usage and I believe default as well. I'll double check on that, but if not, we're on our almost there. We're on our way there to the most default, or at least it's expected to be. So that's another thing that can send ripple effect through the market sentiment. But not just that, but physically, people will not be able to participate in the real estate market. You might have way less buyers, or you might have distressed sellers, which are people that their only asset is whatever equity they have in their home, and everything else they're extended to the gills. So that's another great item that I'm keeping a close eye on. We'll see what happens with that. Uh, Unemployment, it's, again, I hate to keep harping like this, but it it feels like the ups and downs, besides the physical interest rates, the ups and downs of a lot of what we see in the market are effects of some of these numbers or data coming out. Unemployment, again, when we see some of this data come out, people kind of hold tight to what their current position is, so it'll send another shockwave through the market sentiment, and a lot of people will not want to participate. Rental absorption is one that I've been tracking for really only since last year, because there's not there's not a database where I can look at what homes are coming up for lease. I can only see what's available either now or in the next couple of weeks. So I can't look into 3 or 4 years into the future or 3 or 4 months into the future or a year into the future and see what's going to be available, because I don't know. The leases are private, so I can't tell if somebody signed a 1 year lease, a 2 year lease. Um, so as it happens, I like to see how many more homes than last year, and I'm looking only at homes, not apartments. How many more homes than last year are becoming available? That's number one. That tells me that there's a investor who either is uh, has a new investment property that needs to be filled, or somebody just put up their either first or second home up for rent, and they're going to be also a buyer, and then that's going to be participation in the market. How quickly those rental homes are filled, that's a buyer that's gone, that's a home that's not sold, so that's less participation in the market. And number three, the pricing, right? So the new home that becomes available versus the home that's been available, how competitive are those going to be on pricing? Are they going to compete with each other towards the bottom, or are they going to stay put until they get filled? That's also less participation because they're not selling. Typically, sellers will start with selling, and then if it doesn't sell at their price, then they'll try to rent. Rarely is it vice versa, but it does happen. Absolutely. Oh, it hasn't rented. I'm not getting the rate I want. Let's sell it, right? But if that person didn't get the rate they wanted for rent, typically they're not going to get the price they're going to sell for. Who knows? Um, but yeah, so rental absorption. And then at the very end, I'm looking at the sales cycle for real estate. So any industry that has a sales component has part of the year that sales are either up or down. For us, typically from spring break till June, not so much July, till June, maybe the first week of July. That's the hottest the market is. After that second week of July, when people are looking at the school year to get started for the school year, the market kind of slows down. Not always dramatically, but this past year it was pretty rough. I had clients that came to the market. I've been telling them, please list your home. Uh, April, May, June, July came. Hey, can we list? That home sat on the market maybe 3 months because we were just not getting the price that they needed. Had we listed just 3 weeks prior, more than likely would have had multiple offers. But that's just the way it is. That's just the sales cycle. We have a sales cycle that rarely ever changes. Now, that by itself isn't a huge driver, but if you pair up a sales cycle, whatever time of the month or time of the year you're in, plus any of these other news, the CPI, unemployment, or any of the other things, interest rates that I've mentioned, then if you pair those together, then you have some sort of effect on the market, right? So if I have rate cuts in October, November, yeah, you'll see a pop in sales for sure, 100%. But it won't be as big a pop had the rate cut been, I don't know, end of February, beginning of March, when you see the most sales from mid March to mid June, July. So, yeah, so those are the five factors that I'm looking at to kind of, as every month goes by, or every week goes by, really, because this is a weekly thing, it's a weekly sport. I'm going to see what the best situations are for each client. And again, these are not going to affect everybody the same. Everybody's in a different position socioeconomically. So you take these and then you apply them to the person. You take all this data and you apply it to the person. So I'm going to read you what I wrote as kind of like a conclusion of what, not necessarily a prediction, what I would like to see. Kind of like, think of it as like if I'm talking to Santa Claus and I'm like, hey, real estate Santa Claus, this is what I would like to see. My hope is the continued uncertainty creates balance. Out of some sort of chaos, peace. sellers get realistic about pricing without a crash. So we have a healthy supply. Simultaneously, prepared buyers, buyers with healthy down payments, buyers that are not taking second position loans for down payments and closing costs. Prepared buyers jump into the market with some sort of subdued demand, right? Because it's not everybody, right? It's not, money's not super cheap, so not everybody's coming to the party. My hope is rates come back down slowly so as not to create some sort of another inflationary frenzy. Now, will this happen? All three things at the same time? Like I said at the beginning of this video, many of these factors are out of our control. It requires either large government intervention or a large group of Americans, led mostly by millennials, which I've been reading up on how uh, the accumulation of real estate by generation, essentially, and which way are each generation headed economically, socioeconomically. So we need a large group of Americans, led mostly by millennials, to improve their financial literacy and become better quality participants in the real estate market. Because what's going to happen is, for the most part, boomers are going to exit, sell, likely not buy, and we need to be able to continue pricing real estate correctly. Because what's going to happen with boomers is they're going to exit the market, they're going to sell, or because of age, they pass away, and these properties are left to family or left abandoned, and that transfer of real estate wealth, uh, we need to start creating better financial habits that are good for the market. What do I mean by that? It is the consensus of most of my Gen X and and Boomer counterparts, other real estate agents, that prices just go up forever unless there's a crash. And honestly, if that continues to happen, that's going to be an issue that just perpetually creates more and more real estate markets to keep prices low for those that just can't afford uh, what used to be a $400,000 home is now a $665,000 home, which we've seen here in Katy. So if it goes up forever, no, it inevitably it crashes, but then it picks back up. So we need better financial literacy. We need better economic practices the from millennials, from Gen Z, from everybody that's coming up, if we want to keep home affordability.